Hi everyone, and welcome back to the 5 Minute Language YouTube channel. My name is Agnieszka, and if you haven't been here before, make sure you subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss any similar videos in the future. And obviously, give this video a thumbs up and share your own experiences of language learning in the comments below. I would really appreciate it if you could share with me the things that you struggle with or the things that you're interested in so that I can make similar videos in the future. So in this video, I'm going to answer the question of how long it takes to learn a language. So the first thing to bear in mind is that it's difficult to answer this question for many different reasons, and the answer won't be as straightforward as you would want it to be. So learning a language takes time and commitment. But how long do you actually need? Well, it all depends on what you mean by speaking a language. For me, learning a foreign language is all about being able to communicate. And being able to communicate is about saying and understanding. So you need to cover those two things. Speaking is a bit of a challenge at the start when you don't know a lot of vocabulary, but you can often get by trying to explain different concepts with the words that you already know. In terms of listening, that's more challenging because you don't have control over what somebody else is telling you. So they might be using vocabulary that you don't really understand, and that will basically impair your communication. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that you have control over your speaking, but you don't have as much control over your listening comprehension. So I'm going to give you a very, very general recipe for language learning, for how long it takes. If you spend an hour every day learning a language, that would make it 7 hours a week and 30 hours a month. And it's not a lot, but it's enough to give you a very basic understanding of the most important language and grammar structures in the language you're learning, and also to equip you with some basic vocabulary that you can then use to have conversations in the language you're learning. So after the first month of doing that, if you really commit to studying in a structured way for an hour every day, you can begin to see progress at the end of the month. So what I mean by progress is you will be able to build basic sentences. You will be able to explain very basic things about yourself. Depending on what type of vocabulary you learn, you might be able to describe different objects or describe your surroundings, and you might be able to ask basic questions. Also, like I said, you will be able to say things, but it might be more difficult for you at this point to understand what other people are saying. So you might be able to understand some basic questions that people ask you, or some basic things that they tell you. As you continue beyond the first month, you will probably start to focus on vocabulary rather than focusing on grammar or structures. Because the way I learn languages, I like to be able to understand the kind of basic concepts of the language. So, does it follow the same syntax as my native language? Does it use verbs? Does it conjugate? These are the kind of things that I like to know myself. You might be different. So, there is no right or wrong way of learning. It's just a question of choosing whatever works for you. But for me, I would spend the first month familiarizing myself with the structure of the language and also doing some vocabulary work as well. So in the second month, I would definitely focus on vocabulary. And the reason I would do that is so that I can really start expressing more complicated or more complex messages, and also to enable myself to understand other people. So like I said to you, you need to build vocabulary to be able to understand what other people are saying, because that's an essential element of communication, speaking and listening. So if you focus on developing your vocabulary for another month or two, you might get to the stage where you just become a little bit more fluent and a little bit more confident. So this is basically the first 3 months, and I'm sure you've seen, lots of different courses that teach you the basics of the language in 3 months. So I'm obviously here talking to those of you who haven't got a whole day to learn a language. If you did, then you could probably get to a pretty good level after 3 months of studying non-stop every day. But I'm talking more about a kind of relaxed way of learning. So for somebody who works or goes to school, and who is not able to find a lot of time in the day, 1 hour every day definitely gives you good foundations and probably takes you up to a sort of pre-intermediate level after 3 months, I would say, depending on the language you're learning. So if you're English and you're learning French, you might be able to get to that pre-intermediate level by the end of the 3 month period. With some other languages, it might be more difficult. It might take you longer, like if the language is completely different to the languages you already know. In terms of getting beyond that kind of pre-intermediate level, I would suggest that you spend another 3 months to try and really develop your vocabulary in a more idiomatic way. So what I mean by that is learning about what words go with other words, what kind of expressions exist in the language you're learning, how you can produce sentences which are natural. So it's basically about developing an ability to sound naturally and also to understand when people speak to you in a more kind of complex way. So after 6 months, I think you can expect to get to possibly the intermediate level. And that is considered the most difficult level to get through once you get there, just because progress is less obvious when you get to that point. And the reason for that is because you already understand the basics. You understand the basic concepts in the language and the grammar. You know a lot of vocabulary, but somehow you still can't speak fluently, and often you still struggle with listening. So the next stage is going to take you a little bit longer. And this is assuming that you still study for 1 hour every day, most days, or every single day, pretty much. So I would say take another 6 months to get to that upper intermediate level if you're studying at that pace. To get completely fluent, I think it's a very individual question, and some people obviously will take longer than others. It all depends on how well structured your learning is, how much you can really invest in terms of time, and how much speaking practice you're getting. So, some people will do a lot of studying and they will have a lot of knowledge in their head, but they won't be able to use it. So I would say, try to get as much speaking practice in as possible to speed up that progress. But essentially, like I said, a month to get the basics out of the way, 3 months to get to that pre-intermediate level, 6 months to get to intermediate, and then probably another 6 months to go to the kind of top of that intermediate level towards upper intermediate, and then to get to advanced or to kind of fluency, you would probably need another 6 or 12 months depending on your individual learning style. So this is it. I would really appreciate it if you could share your experiences with me in the comments below. So just share with me how long it took you to get to fluency, how long it took you to have your first conversation in the language you're learning, and make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!